Today I'm going to teach you how to drive quickly when a car is understeering, maximizing your potential, minimizing the losses, and becoming more adaptable in the process. With that being said, let's jump into the heart of the video and get on track. The track of choice for today is Hungary, quite simply as it's a track that if you have understeer for and you don't adapt to it in the suitable measures, it will be catastrophic for your lap time potential. So over this video, I'm going to make the setup extremely understeery and show you the steps and guides that I do to try and maximize my driving style and driving potential, even with a car that isn't living up to the expectation that I would want it to be doing in its handling characteristics. So basically, let's get into it. Let's go into the setup, make it an understeering mess, and then show you how I adapt to it on the fly. So this is the setup that we're going to be using today. Largely, it's based off the time trial setup with maximum wings, 100, 25, 100, all the way to the left, 41, 1, 21, 21, 21 again, 54 on the rear ride height, 152% brake bias, and maximum tire pressure. So we're going to just basically take 10 clicks of front wing off, make it down to 40, 50 wings, what is going to make the car very, very, very understeery. The first thing you want to do when you're adapting to a car that has a lot of understeer is make sure to not over push the entries of the corner. When you have a lot of front grip, you can really throw the front of the car into the apex, but when you're suffering from not having that much front grip, then you really have to be more careful with it. For example, you can see right now that we tried to throw a lot of speed into the apex, but it just resulted in catastrophic understeer. Once again, you can see going into the corner, and then we are just suffering with understeer as we go through the apex, and it's limiting our ability to get back to 100% power. In the high-speed corner, it was alright. Actually, we got a big oversteer from hitting the curb, but you can just see the car has a lot of understeer in it right now, and you can start to build up an image in your mind of how the car is feeling and why this would be slow or suboptimal for lap time, because we're not able to use the maximum ability of the racing line or the grip from the front tires. The first thing, like we talked about, is not over pushing the entry. So now I'm going to show you a little example on what to do when or not pushing the entry of the corner. This left-hander is a prime example for that. We're going to go in and we're going to push the entry. You can see that the car is just understeering all the way through, and we get a big snap of oversteer just for a bit of fun on the exit. But you can see going into replay camera, we tried to push the entry, but the car just understeers more and more throughout the corner. A big thing about racing tires and a racing car characteristic is once you have a car characteristic in terms of an understeer and oversteer, it tends to exaggerate itself more and more and more as time goes on. So what started as quite a small, minute amount of understeer actually translated into a very big amount of understeer the further and further we got into the corner, to the point that we was almost outside of the track. If we reflect that to the start of the apex, the understeer doesn't actually look that big, and it actually looks quite small, and then exaggerates itself into a much bigger and bigger problem, until my drift, of course. So what we're going to do is now invert that. So instead of pushing the entries, we're going to try and maximize the exit, braking a little bit earlier, keeping the car under control at the apex, and then getting back to the power and maximizing the exit of the corner. Where this is better, quite simply, as before, it was obvious that we were understeering wide and we were losing a lot of lap time. Whereas by braking a little bit earlier and then giving ourselves a bit of an opportunity to react to the grip that's going to be given to us in the corner, this allows us to adjust our racing line, and you can see I'm able to do a little stab of the steering wheel. You're going to see a little correction as we go into the apex here, because I'm able to adjust to the grip levels that I have going into the corner, and this means I'm able to hold a tight racing line. You can see little corrections there, and then I'm able to get back to the power. That isn't correcting to oversteer. That is quite simply correcting my racing line to stay on the optimal path around the apex. And that's what's critical about this situation. In the first example, we overpushed the entry, and then we were suffering from understeer from that point onwards and not able to get the car back to the apex. Whereas in the second example, we was able to control the car better, and although we lost a little bit of time braking a little bit earlier, we was able to understand the grip that we had at this very moment in time, and this is what allows us to keep nice and tight to the apex. So in the key point summary, just don't over push the entries and allow your car the chance to tell you how much grip you're going to have in the corner. Over one lap even, pushing the car on the entries might be okay, but then you're going to start basically destroying the front tire deg, and that's going to make that you have more and more understeer as the stint goes on. What's very, very, very important, maybe even the most important thing about driving a car with understeer is quite simply not destroying the front tires during the racing stint, because as soon as those front tires have more deg or more tire wear percentage than the rear tires do, your understeer is going to get so much worse. So even if you're driving a car that has understeer, make sure that you're not destroying the front tire deg, otherwise the understeer will become to a point that not even anyone in the world can save that situation. The second part we're going to be talking about is trailing the brake into the apex. So if you look at the bottom of the screen, you can see we have the red and the green bars were indicating the throttle and also the brake usage. The green is for the throttle, the red is for the brake. So you can see right now when I'm using the pedal input, it's going up and down, and you're able to get an idea of what's happening. So what's happening with that red bar basically? The more that the car is understeering, I'm applying brake pressure to put the weight transfer to the front of the car. So to explain how that works and how that looks like in a racing situation, if we go to a side profile of the car, when we're going to be braking, we put weight transfer to the front tires. And basically weight transfer equals more weight on the front tire, and that means you get more friction and then you get more grip, because effectively friction is grip in a racing tire, and the tire is making the friction across the surface of the road, and that is how you're able to turn, to put it simply. So the more weight that you have on the front tires, the more friction that you have, and then the more grip that you have. And how you do that is by braking and putting the weight distribution to the front, and also when you're accelerating, the opposite happens and the weight distribution goes to the rear, and you get more friction on the rear tires. You can see the car is actually squatting a little bit as I go to the power, and you can see the rear suspension actually working a little bit, and you can see the car is moving the weight forward and back in these situations. In a little summary, braking means the weight goes to the front, and accelerating means the weight goes to the rear. And how you want to use that to work with your potential grip going forward, quite simply, is you want to be hanging on the brake pedal until you're satisfied at the rotation of the car. For this little exercise, I want you to spend a lot of time watching the red bar at the bottom of the screen. You'll see that I'm hanging onto the brake pedal by like 5-10% until I am satisfied that the car is going to have enough grip to rotate the corner, and then I release the brake pedal. But I'm hanging the weight transfer on the front tires to generate the friction and grip necessary to go around the corner for as long as possible. You can see just hanging on that brake pedal until I'm satisfied that the front tires are going to grip the road and allow me to go around the corner. So that is the second part of it, and we're going to do some examples here that if I release the brake pedal too early in this left-hander, you're going to see we go to the apex, but I release the brake pedal, and it just means that the front of the car is understeering as I do a drift. Ignore me. So ignore the drift on the exit. So you're going to see, of course, now you don't have the braking reference because it doesn't allow it in the replay mode of the game. But as soon as I release the brake pedal, the weight transfer is off the front tires. And you can see about here, we've released the brake pedal. The weight transfer is off the front tires. That means we're not putting the extra friction and then grip into the front tires. And that means the front tires start to wash out a little bit until we're starting to go slow enough that, of course, then the grip picks up again. But it just means that it's very clunky and it's not very good if I do not sort of maximize that situation in the car of keeping weight over the front tires. So now we're going to do this for a few corners so you can really see how that works in a live environment with the car. That I'm going to release the brake pedal too soon, and we're just sort of going to let the car, well, I was deep on the brakes here, that was my fault. We're going to continue to release the brake pedal too soon, and you're going to see the understeer effect on the car. So you can see coming off the brake pedal, and you can see now massive understeer as soon as we come off the brake pedal. And now we're just going to do a lap coming off the brake pedal, then we'll do the next lap after doing it with a good trail braking into the apex. So now you can see off the brake pedal, and you can see the car is just understeering. And the chicane, off the brake pedal nice and early, and you can see the car is just understeering so much. We're not even going to touch the brake through here, and you're going to see a really exaggerated example of that understeer as well, just by simply not putting the weight transfer to the front tires. Into the final sector, and yep, you guessed it, off the brake pedal nice and early, and you can see the car is just understeering in these situations. Into the left-hander, again, off the brake pedal, the car was rotating fairly okayly while I was on the brake pedal, then as soon as I came off the brake pedal, it stopped rotating. So now this example on this lap, we're going to really focus on hanging onto that brake pedal to maximize the rotation potential of the car, and then you're going to see a very, very drastic difference. So hang on to brake pedal until the car's rotated, back on the power, lovely jubbly. Down the mini straight. Now again, hanging on the brake pedal, and you can see hanging on the brake pedal until we're happy with the rotation. We're able to control our racing line so much better and now maximize the potential of the car. Through here, not really anything to do on the brake pedal. Invalidated, unlucky. But you can see hanging on the brake pedal just to get a little bit more rotation. I went a bit deep on that example, so that was my mistake. But you can see in general, you can see the example that by hanging on the brake pedal, we're able to have a better control of our racing line and keep the car in a better condition for the front axle grip potential going forward. Of course, the third point of this video is going to be the braking bias. If you have a car that is going to be understeering, then you could put the braking bias slightly more rearward to help the rotation. So, of course, my face cam is blocking the brake bias, but I can tell you I was on 52%, and now I'm just going to go to 58%. Actually, no, we'll go to 60% for this final example of the video. And you're just going to see that by putting the brake bias too far forward, you're going to see that we're just going to lock up and sort of go wide on these situations. And now we're going to put the brake bias down to 50%. What really will generate a bit of rear locking, and it won't be that ideal. You can see it's fighting the car on the entry, but it just gives you an example. Providing that you're not locking the rear axle and making the instability in the car that way, then you can go as rearward as you like on the braking bias to help the rotation of the car in these situations. You can see the car is actually rotating beautifully through these corners now, just by moving the brake bias a little bit more rearward and just allowing the car to bite into the apexes. So yeah, this has been how to maximize driving with understeering, quite a simple and direct video, so hopefully it's helping you at home as well. And I'm just going to whack the wing back up to 50%, and yeah, this is a setup that you can use for Hungary on F124. Like I say, it's mostly based off the time trial setup. What I did was just add 15%. I think it was 15%. I think it started on 10% off throttle differential, and I just went up to 25% off throttle differential to add a little bit of stability to the car. But yeah, this is a setup that you can use for Hungary if you would like to at home as well. Thank you so much for watching. Hopefully this video has been helpful for you on how to adapt your driving style on the go to minimize understeer within the car. Something that I feel like a lot of people don't like, and a lot of people struggle with on how to adapt their style in the middle of a stint to minimize the understeer. I changed my background as well, so hopefully that looks a bit nicer on the video. And yeah, a lot of content, especially after the F1 esports season. What I think is going to be finishing in like a week. I think it's a week. I fly next week today or something like that. So anyway, after that I'm going to really push a lot harder on the content as well, with live streaming and just shorts and just basically doing videos as well. So hopefully you enjoy that content coming up. I very much look forward to it, and I'll catch you in the next video. Grazie, ciao ciao, bye bye.